We are live.
Hey, hello everyone. We are on this Interoperable podcast, a podcast where we talk about one of the main features of blockchain technology, which is interoperability. And today we are diving into how Web3 is entering a new phase where interoperability and data intelligence have become the foundation for any product that wants to scale. So here we have two amazing guests. One is Arno from Dune, a leading platform on blockchain data and business intelligence for blockchain and Web3. And Jana from Myosin, a Web3 native growth collective. So uh, please introduce yourself. And also, I forgot my co-founder Esteban, CEO of DeFindex.
Thank you, Francisco, for the introduction.
So please, if you can introduce yourself.
Jana, go for it.
I was waiting to go in the order of the introductions, but let's flip it around. So Jana Bertram, I'm a fractional CMO with the Myosin network. As a fractional CMO, I work with projects on designing strategies that help them elevate their brand and their growth approaches so that they can either find product market fit or expand on that product market fit and truly go and penetrate harder on their target audience segments. So really thinking about marketing through the lens of business growth. And that's essentially what I do. Previous to Myosin, I was Myosin's client when I was running Rari Foundation, and that's how I joined the network. So before that, a long time ago, I was agency in the Web2 world. So I kind of made a full circle just in Web3. But I think, it's a really fun time to be in Web3 marketing because I think for those who are watching this in a timely fashion and they're also following the discourse that is happening on X timelines, I think, marketing, despite getting some heat, is also getting some spotlight, finally well-deserved, because we wish that products would market themselves, but I think somebody needs to be telling the stories, and that somebody is usually the marketer in the room, really helping the founders to crystallize how to bring that story to life and how to deliver it in a way that it cuts through the noise and is served on the right channels. So that's a little bit of intro about who I am and what I do. And Arna, on to you now.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard the storytelling has been trending more than ever in crypto. It's kind of ironic, but yeah, thank you. Super excited to be here. My name is Arno. I lead go-to-market at Dune. Dune is the on-chain data platform. So it's basically a place where you can have access to about 150 blockchains. So it's a platform, you access chains. So we have a lot of data. We serve anybody from crypto companies to retail investors to institutions and enterprises. No matter what type of data and how you want to serve, we like to think that Dune is a source of truth to do that. We're known for the Dune dashboard. I think that's how we started, with a community first and driven platform, but we've evolved now as really, as people call it, the source of truth when it comes to on-chain data. So we're also a storyteller to some extent. We just use the data as a way to try to understand what's happening on chain and try to see how can this potentially drive some decision making or support businesses. But yeah, super excited to be here.
Thank you, Arno. Thank you, Jana. And well, let me also introduce myself. I am Esteban, co-founder with Francisco and Joaquin of DeFindex, and we are very happy to have you here in our third chapter of this podcast. We all met in DevConnect in Buenos Aires, at least with Jana, after working together for a couple of months. So, and I am very happy. And we met with Arno a couple of 1 week ago, or 2 weeks ago, in Miami. Yeah, Yes, again, was really happy. I was really happy to see you there. So happy to have you here.
Well, thanks for the invite.
Great.
Francisco.
Well, so we'll talk about interoperability, data, and decisions. So interoperability right now is no longer only about bridges. It's about functional architecture. It's about liquidity flow, and all of that to provide an invisible UX, a UX that just works. So at the end, users don't really know what is happening behind, but the companies that are behind the products needs that data to improve their products and improve obviously interoperability with these products to advance on UX. So I wanted to ask for Dune from a data perspective, what indicators do you think it shows that an ecosystem is advancing in interoperability?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of way to look at it. I would say that what the data is showing is that when we see power user active on, like, let's say 3 to 5 chains within a 30-day window, I think this is a very good sign. Typically, what we see as interoperability in some mature ecosystem. When you have an active, like 40 to 50% of active wallets that interact with more than one chain per month, that's also a very interesting data points that we have seen. And I think like that signal kind of stay very strong if people are staying on the chains, but when users are going to like different chains. So I think what that means in practice is that when users move to change, but they keep using the same product, that is to me ultimately a real interoperability. So that's really what it means. Like, for example, I love steak. I might go to different steakhouse, but at the end of the day, just like different change, I keep using the same product and I'm going to stay there. So I would say that those are some of the interesting data points that we're seeing so far.
Awesome. I think.
Wait, yes. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I lost you guys. I thought I was alone for a second.
Yeah, that's the magic of television. So, well, yeah, thank you, Arnaud, for this. And so, I wanted to ask Jana, what narratives resonates today for multi-chain products?
I love the question, right? Because what Arno was mentioning before, storytelling is getting some spotlight, and I think more and more of the storytelling that we're seeing happening these days, as opposed to a few years ago, is actually focused on the user and what the user's needs are being addressed, and what are the actual benefits that can be solved by using a certain product in the user's lives. So it's actually a little bit less about the technical storytelling, which might still be, pertinent for technical audiences, developers, and so on. But usually on the end user, there's a lot of abstraction that is happening currently, right? So even like if you think about product launches like the DeFi app by Aave, right? When you think about using Aave a few years ago, you actually had to have a relatively decent level of blockchain. right? And I think like that barrier is becoming lower and lower, and now actually like the grandma should be able to use Aave. So similarly, when it comes to narratives and storytelling around interoperability on the user level, it actually becomes more about the general user experience. So the products that are here to win and the marketing that it's actually like positioned to win with those products are those where the interoperability is happening all on the back end, and the user actually doesn't even need to spend a minute of cognitive load thinking about interoperability, right? They will just see they're getting the best yield option. They don't have to worry about which chain that yield is on. To Arno's point about like, if I like my app, I should be able to enjoy the app in any kind of environment, right? So the steakhouse in New York or in LA should be still the best experience that they will have when it comes to eating steak. So it's the same thing in the interoperable environment, right? And I think like just leading with that benefit, even for like some of the technical audiences, when you think about projects like Espresso, right? So for some time they were doing shared sequencing, and then they pivoted from shared sequencing and they started talking about interoperability. And if you listen to Jill, one of the co-founders from Espresso, in any of like her recent conversations, she actually started adopting talking about fast finality, right? Because fast finality is the end benefit. Interoperability is how we get there, right? And it Espresso does solve interoperability problem, but the net benefit is fast finality. So like this is long-winded answer to saying like focus on the benefit, on the outcome for the end user rather than the how to, because the interoperability can be a little bit like procedural sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And something that I've noticed too, and Jenna, you might know better, but there is a couple of things you can do with your product sometimes that might not seem a lot, but for users, it means a lot. So for example, like all the routers now, they should do like routing automatically. Like we should not have to ask the user to pick the chain. Like it should be like routed in the backend, you know, automatically. And I think the language count too. Like I think the moment you start like surfacing things like bridges and change, like you start to introduce friction, I think you lose users. I think if you stay with like better yield, lower fee, faster execution, like people get it. If you trying to, we have these things at Dune where we always try not to push our tech stack to the consumer, and quite often it's a bad, you know, engineering things to do. It's like because we code it like this internally, it doesn't mean we have to use the same word externally. But I think those little things sometimes makes a huge difference when it comes to facilitating that onboarding.
That was awesome. Well, and with DeFindex, we work for these kind of products that want to solve interoperability, that wants to improve user experience, and for our grandma to use crypto and save money there, and or pay their bills. I don't know. So I wanted to ask Esteban how DeFindex is solving this interoperability question, or how it relates with
This
what
challenge.
Jana told.
Yeah. So it's very similar how Jana said. Like our end user, it might be a grandma. They just want to have a savings account, and it has been a challenge for us to explain what first, of course, to explain to other people, our friends, our family, what we do, and after doing like a lot of exercises, we came to us like very small pitch to say we are just providing savings accounts for people, and the best will be not to even talk about interoperability or concepts or the underlying protocols that are in that savings account. And also, talking a bit about the data. So for DeFindex, we provide savings accounts touching protocols on DeFi, right? But we also need to show the user how their money is being used. So there is a big challenge on explaining the final user, hey, but this yield comes from this protocol, and then this other yield comes from this other protocol. So abstracting all that data into in one metric, I think, is the biggest challenge for DeFindex, and this is what we are trying to do, like providing one very simple product with a very simple metrics for our end users, and using data and go-to-market strategies.
Yeah.
Well, if you want, I'll feed you one additional data point. There's this analyst, I think his name is Biscuit in Dune, and I can't remember which. He was looking at I think it was how apps are more resilient when they start adopting multi-chain strategies, specifically during volatility time. So I'll have to pick up his Dune dashboard, but it was pretty obvious that as you start to adopt a multi-strategies, you just basically, it's like diversifying your portfolio, right? So to some extent, it's like you're more resilient in tough times.
Okay, amazing. And probably the end user didn't even know that though their strategies were picking yield from multi-chain, but they just wanted the end result.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think it's also like interesting because the experience on the user end has significantly improved, but a lot of the ecosystems are actually still somehow reasonably siloed, right? So I think it's also very, very smart of apps to be approaching this multi-chain world as an opportunity, because these ecosystems sometimes present net incremental audience that you can actually reach. So you can't assume that users will be moving around where the opportunity is. There are certain entrenched behaviors, there are certain barriers that people have or might perceive that they have in moving across ecosystems. So the more you can help users make those movements, potentially even on the back end, right? The easier it is. And you're actually tapping new audience segments by making yourself multi-chain. You're expanding your potential customer base. So I think it's a smart move. And, I think Arno does have an interesting data point there, especially in a resilient time. It's probably time to be thinking about expanding your market, because you kind of are forced to do that.
Thank you. I think that was one of the recommendations they gave us in this roasted. Francisco was there with Arno.
The roast, yeah.
Roasts and more people.
Awesome. Well, we have been using Dune for showing our data to our partners, to provide very transparent information about where our APY comes from, what are the strategies, how these strategies have performed in the past, who is trusting us, and that kind of data. So I wanted to we are talking about storytelling. Can you tell a story about how data changed some product decisions, and then also for Jana, how data changed a marketing strategy or marketing campaign?
You go first, Jenna.
Okay.
Well, I really enjoy collecting data, partially because I'm one of those kids that loved math in school. And, it's just always good to see, trends and try to identify patterns. And I think, Arno was giving us some examples here of how the data can be used to derive insights, right? So you can look at the multi-chain behavior and you can start kind of using that as an intelligence around segmentation of audience. So when you're targeting them, right? You have a better understanding of who is it that you talk to, and therefore you get a sense of messaging that might better resonate with them, right? So that's like one example of like how data is used. It's usually like to inform some audience segmentation and messaging strategies and, you know, channel strategies and so on. But I think like on a holistic level, when it comes to marketing, it's, in my opinion, very important to have some sort of data tracking set up from very early stage, right? You don't have to wait for your marketing function to scale to start measuring impact and start learning and really like recording those insights on what's working, what's not working, what's performing, what's not performing, because you constantly want to be reallocating your resources. So as an example, right, I think like before you go and scale any kind of approach, it's always smart to do a bit of a pilot, right? And the pilot really is designed to learn and gather insights. So you want to be measuring as much as possible so that you can then assess after a few weeks of running something, maybe a month of running something, and say, does this hypothesis that we tested out as a strategy, right, when we bring it to the world, does it produce the results that we think it should be producing? Yes or no, right? And you can learn from that and you can pivot. Sorry, I'm drinking my tea here because it's only been a few days ago that I was in bed with the flu. So I'll take a break and I'll pass it to Arno.
No worries. Take your time. I'm also fighting a flu myself here, but yeah, I think, well, first of all, hopefully, like everybody should, you know, we're pretty fortunate because in crypto, the backbone of our industry is data by definition, and that data is available to everybody, right? It's not always the case. Sometimes gathering data is kind of actually hard, right? Measuring data is hard. So although I would say it's probably a dichotomy, like the blockchain is an open ledger, but it's actually hard to access it and understand it, but at least it's there. And I think to some extent, when I connect data and decision, I would say that perhaps I've seen teams that often believe that users are loyal to one chain. And I would say I would agree and disagree. I would say it would be very interesting to look at the data to say, I think it depends on the product probably and the audience, but I would argue that that might be a false assumption when it comes to the data. I think one thing very obvious that we've all learned, but to some extent it's still happening, is the data shows that when an incentive ends, the user migrates pretty fast. And I think, you know, as part of your marketing strategy, as part of your go-to-market, as far as your launch, I think be able to, you know, I think it's a hot topic, but just to like separate the noise from, we see tons of on spikes sometimes on Dune on different protocols. And I think when you look at the correlation of incentives, so I think teams have changed their strategy because they have understood where those spikes were coming from. And they were focusing probably not on the excitement to see a spike, but probably what is actually the retention that's coming after the incentive. So definitely some interesting dynamic between changing your strategy or changing your decision based on spike and incentive, I would say, overall. And I think, like, you know, I think we don't give also enough credit to Jaina and the people working on marketing, because like it's actually hard to do a lot of segmentation. Like, you know, a lot of the data is not as easy as you think. It's not like your typical, you know, wallet data is actually quite complex, you know, to understand which user is doing what. Every transaction, I can tell you, is depending on the chain, depending on the type of transaction, it's very, you know, it's not as easy to see, oh, there is a swap, there is a buying an NFT, and being able to create those cohorts and those clusters is very hard. And usually when you do that very well for your product, that's how you can change your strategy based on that data. And it's quite hard. Like, people sometimes underestimate what it takes to gather that data, understanding, and it's quite interesting.
Thanks for the props on behalf of all the marketers out there. I think, you know, what is one thing you said there, Arno, is something that I used to say a lot, and then I kind of started taking it for granted. So thank you for the reminder. I think it's a privilege in Web3 that we have such instant feedback loops on the strategies that we are deploying. The fact that so much is actually trackable, attributable, measurable and in instant time, it's not something that can be taken for granted in any other industry. In my previous Web2 marketing career, right, like I would wait weeks to find out how a campaign was performing, and those weeks would cost money of ad spend, right, that I was not able to pivot, right? And I was like, my mid-campaign results were in 4 weeks, not in 1 week, right? So I actually like really had to wait and optimize like at a much slower pace in a way, and all that would cost resources. So I think, as Web3 marketers, we can be like super efficient with our spend as well, right? Sometimes we don't have the same budgets and we kind of are forced to be efficient, right? But I think this like real-time feedback loop is something that like people really need to leverage, because it's a very special position that we're in.
And I think to that extent, there is definitely the 24/7 that's different. And also the fact that some of that data quite often was reserved to the product itself, right? If you think about, if you use a software today, you can't really have access to the performance of that software, right? If you use a CRM or Zoom or even this webinar, because of the nature of our industry, like I can on my own actually track what's happening on DeFindex and Uniswap. So it's also changing, I would say, whether you call it investor relation to some extent, if you're going into the trading side of a house, or even for every marketer, you have to mix data with storytelling. And, obviously we've been fortunate to, we've seen dashboard everywhere, but, you have companies like Uniswap that actually embrace it, and they are using this data transparency as part of their storytelling. Every time they reach a milestone, they're like, don't trust us. Here's the link. Go check it out for yourself. And if that changed tomorrow, you don't have to wait for me to do another post or like share that information on the quarterly earnings. It's there for you. So it's interesting also like the story, the way we tell stories and the fact it's accessible. It has a double sword effect as marketer, because you cannot control maybe as much the story perhaps sometimes, but I think it brings that transparency that you can, if done well, I think you can lean on as an asset.
Yeah, I think for transparency purposes, this is a complete game changer, right? We have in Web3, we have all these native tokens, and a lot of the times the tokens are tied to governance utility or governance rights, right? So as a token holder, you do want to see how the project or the protocol is performing, and having access to those dashboards and those data that are packaged in a way that makes sense, right? That are not necessarily just like raw explorer type of information, but, for example, not going to say names, tracking TVL, like on a well-known dashboard, right? But, all of this is actually like helping those stakeholder relations and those investor relations, right? And the investors are not necessarily just big funds. They are the day-to-day token holders, right? So you are actually using those tools to appraise everybody of your progress in real time.
And it's very important to be able to verify. That's what we love about Dune. That's why we as a team, and we as I guess that the community love this kind of dashboards or data sources where people can verify and even run themselves the queries. Because as you said, Jana, like TVL, it's you can have like different type of TVL, right? Or different types of APY metrics depending on how you measure things.
Cool. So we're just all loving data and storytelling here. That's a very easy conversation.
and I think we were all the nerds that liked maths when we were kids, right?
What? Excuse?
We were all nerds. We were all the nerd kids that loved math. Probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that Francisco, he was also.
Yes. Well, so if 1 million new users enter Web3 tomorrow, what do you think it will break first? And how would interoperability or data will fix it? Open question.
The queries will break. We will need to run like a big machine with a lot of
Nothing,
transactions.
nothing break at Dune. We make it rain every day. But for me, I think like UX complexity is like if I think about the funnel, I would say maybe personal opinion, maybe even as a consumer of some of those products, but I would say I think like UX complexity at the top sometimes is kind of like what breaks. Then you have liquidity fragmentation probably after that, like it's obviously in the context of DeFi. And then after it's kind of like trust support, like if the people have passed the UX, the onboarding on that product, then they found the liquidity they want, like in some yield or the DeFi application. But I think it's still money. So I think there's a sense of, like, I would say, user trust or support. So I think your brand, needs to be important. I think those are the three things that I would think about in that order. That would maybe make the funnel thinner and thinner if you don't check those boxes.
Yeah, and I think like just to build on that, like on the marketing front, like a lot of the time I think about like the distribution, right? So like if you have 1 million people join Web3, like what does it mean to your distribution model, right? And you probably need to like re-envision that, right? Because like how did the people get here? Where are they? Who are they, right? You probably need to rethink how you're going to be marketing your product, because suddenly there's just like this whole new pool of users that you need to be thinking about, right? So I think it might not necessarily break your marketing machine, but you definitely will need to like recalibrate.
Great. Well, and Arnaud just told us that they were planning 2026. So let's talk about the future. Well, at DeFindex, we want to increase our interoperability beyond Stellar and adding more connections to other chains, all powered by data, probably more Dune dashboards for us, and more stories to tell. So for both of you guys, what's coming next for the future for Dune and Myosin? Something that you can tell us.
Well, on the Myosin front, I'm not privy to everything that's going on. I'm like one of the many people in the network, so you might need to tell some of the higher ups for the grand vision plans. But I know that there's a lot of like exciting partnerships cooking up, and hopefully continued collaboration with the Stellar ecosystem, because that has been like a really nice partnership, helping projects like DeFindex and some of the other leaders in the category in the Stellar ecosystem to sharpen up that creative muscle. But overall, I think like we're seeing, as I mentioned, like in the beginning, right, we're seeing a lot of emphasis on the marketing function now. So there's definitely a lot of interest across the board, where teams know that they need to be leveling up, scaling up, plussing up, with a flexible type of resource model. So I think that's really exciting for Myosin to be part of those conversations. We've definitely seen the network grow. And, when I mentioned I was a client first, Myosin was smaller. And like even in the 6 months that I've been part of the network, I've actually seen the network grow quite a bit. So that's really positive sign. And, I'm quite excited for the network to see, which clients they're going to be working with in the next year. Oh, I forgot to mention they're actually like working on few cool projects as well, because they're like developing. Myosin is developing AI tools, and there's a lot of AI automation. And one thing, this is a little bit about like just me speaking out of my heart here, right? But there's like a lot of cool things for the members. So I've been joining like AI workshops every week. There's like an AI workshop where, like people that actually like dedicate a lot of time in researching the tools and, you know, starts teaching the rest of the network about like potential applications of AI to like make the marketing work smarter and faster and better. And, you know, there's just like so much potential as well. So I'm like super excited about what's in for the marketing network when it comes to use of AI tools as well, because I think that's like a big transformation. We didn't really like talk about that so much in this podcast, but there's a major disruption to like a lot of work disciplines across the board. But I think marketing is actually getting like quite rapidly transformed with the use of AI tools as well. So I'm really excited for that in 2026, because Myosin is really like putting some good investment in making sure that the team is actually equipped with being able to use these tools.
Awesome.
I'll go next, I guess. So I think what I've really liked about Dune since I've joined the company a little 2 years ago is like the mission has always been the same, which is quite interesting. Like we see a lot of pivot happening, and so it's making crypto data accessible, and that takes different priorities, you know, over the years, of course. But and I think what this means for us as we enter 2026 is that data likes to live next to other data. There is this kind of a center of gravity, and we want Dune to be the on-chain data platform where no matter your use cases, like I said, whether you are a US regulated organization to a DeFi protocol to a trader, you can achieve no matter what your business case is on Dune, leveraging on-chain data. And obviously, historically, we started with dashboard, and we started with a very strong, I would say, analytics core. And I think over the years, the demand have been more towards, I would say, mission critical use case. And because of that, we've been working very hard actually this year to build, I would say, a suite of products in order to answer the needs of those different customer segmentations. So historically, it was just people who wanted to build dashboard, but you know, JP Morgan doesn't care about building dashboards. They care about having access to a large amount of data in a top quality at a specific, you know, frequency, and you cannot really miss the mark. So also evolving, I would say, or changing a little bit from just analytics use cases to what we consider mission critical. So it's a little bit of a different also environment for us internally, like the type of skill set and teams within Dune that we have been hiring and building within the company in order to answer those different use cases and there's different verticals. So it's been a super excited growth mode this year from that perspective. You know, don't get me wrong, it's still about on-chain data at DeFindex. So, you know, having a broad coverage, you know, it's kind of like when you go to a dumpling restaurant, like you want to make sure you have access to the entire buffet, so to speak. But it's been an interesting journey. But like I said, as much as there are new products, as much as there are new development, like what I love about Dune is it's been true to its own roots from back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, which is truly making crypto data accessible, and we're going to continue to do that next year.
This comes with the real-time data, right? At Dune, Arno?
Yes. So again, in the same approach that I just shared, like people, like, you know, we were talking about it, like it's a little bit our own way to think about interoperability, which is a challenge for us. Like now we have 150 chain. There is EVM, non-EVM. Those chain actually moves at a different speed, as we all know. Like a Solana is different, you know, different block time as an Ethereum. Like now an end user that come to our platform might not know all of this, but they might think is like, why am I getting all the Solana transaction almost real time? Why do I need 7 minutes to get the next line basically in my table on Ethereum? Because they don't have the on-chain data expertise, but who cares? Like they came to like consume on-chain data. So we're trying to abstract all of that complexity. And also instead of asking you how fast you want the data, again, in the spirit of like providing the right product for the right users, we've built last year an entirely new, I would say, real-time data product. It's called SIM. We're super excited. It's primarily focused towards wallet. So anybody that's using a wallet, no matter if it's a standalone or non-custodial, you know, a lot of a wallet today, when you refresh your balances and you want to have a proper balance, you want to have a transaction, it's actually quite hard, even for first-class wallet, to do it well and at scale and properly and have your DeFi position and the prices in the pool. I mean, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds here, but we're talking true user experience here. If it doesn't work, then someone is going to download another wallet and see if, you know, my Bitcoin is showing up as soon as I don't buy it, not like 5 minutes later. So we're super excited about that. And again, this is in the spirit of like, we just provide you on-chain data. It doesn't matter if it's real-time, not real-time, EVM, non-EVM. We want to make sure we have a solution for you.
Awesome. Thank you for the insights, both of you. And what advice would you give to a new builder in Web3? On 2026.
Well, I think, you know, a lot of people fall in love with the idea that they have for like solving a problem. I think, you know, validating the problem to solve sometimes is a good step to take as well. You know, a lot of the times the intuition like might be the right path forward, but sometimes you just don't want to be, you know, putting a lot of energy into creating a beautiful technologically advanced product as an academic concept, and, you know, then trying to figure out who's actually going to be using it, right? So as long as you're doing it out of the passion for it, that's totally great, right? But if you're thinking about growing business, I think it's kind of good to be thinking about it as a business from day one, rather than just a product from day one. And most businesses need customers. So validating the idea and like trying to figure out like what actually makes people interested, I think it's a good first step.
Yeah, I would say like build product, not infrastructure. I think we've heard that narrative a little bit too much. I think it has changed as well, but I think, you know, some of you may have watched the Coinbase, you know, announcement yesterday. It was pretty crazy to not just look everything that they announced, but that, you know, the word is moving on chain. And I think seeing, you know, one of our blue chip companies in the ecosystem, you know, answering that building true products that solve real use cases for some people that may not have touched crypto. I think one product was just invoicing, as simple as it sounds, right? So I think this is very exciting. Like less infrastructure, we have enough rails, we have enough, you know, under the hood, but build true product that people are willing and ready to use now. You know, we talk a lot about metrics too. So, you know, going back to the storytelling is, you know, a little bit less maybe about TVL and maybe a little bit more about, you know, retention and consumer behavior and, you know, that type of dialogue when we talk about performance, when we talk about a chance, when we talk about an app. I think those are the things that give traction to new builders. And I think if you want to raise money, which is, you know, I would say a little bit more challenging these days, but for good reason, that's maybe, you know, what it was a few years back. I think having a solid product, not infrastructure, and having the right metrics to support, you know, what you think success looks like is I think a good start.
Awesome.
So we have enough infrastructure to build amazing products.
Yeah, and you need a good storyteller. You know, we have the best marketing people at Dune. Her name is Alcy. I don't know if she's listening to that, probably not, but she's the best. And so, yeah, you need a good storyteller.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Arno, Jana, Esteban. Thank you for today's podcast. Just we can take a picture. So let's make the best face.
Yay! I have a question. I don't know. You have a Dune dashboard graph in your wall.
So on this side here.
Yeah. It's a graph.
So this is So talking about marketing, I don't know if you have a few minutes. Maybe we do. You tell me if we need to stop. But so we actually went for a full rebranding, which Jana might know. It's actually quite a very interesting exercise. I've done only twice. The first time was a pretty large company. That's my first time in more of a startup environment. It's actually a very long process. People might think, we're not just talking changing the logo. You go pretty deep in your route, in your positioning, and it's a long way of saying it's a multi-month effort, which was super useful and valuable for us. The output of that, if some of you have been at DuneCon in Buenos Aires, is obviously new colors and not tons of new things. What you see here is it's a gradient. So it's actually not exactly a dashboard, but you can see the similarities in the color patterns. So it's the old Dune logo with a, as you can tell, like a yellow, red-ish gradient. But we put on I think it was a 25-foot ceiling screen if you guys were in Argentina, which is beautiful. So we've tried to through the rebranding, in person to launch this in Argentina. And this is the output of that. But yeah, we've actually printed a few dashboards, some of our very famous, one that sometimes Vitalik or Sandeep posted. We print it, we give it away as a nice little frame. It's also a nice little gift.
And the reason of moving, I was just curious when I saw it at the website. The reason, so sorry if I am going out of the extending the podcast, but the reason of going away of the colors and going more black and white was more for this purpose of providing more traditional or being more approach to traditional kind of data providers, or
I would say there's tons of different reasons, and like I say, I encourage not everybody to do it, by the way, because it's a pretty long multi-month project. Again, it's not just changing some colors somewhere. If you do it well, and Jana, you probably know better than I do. It's a very interesting, it's a reflection on your brand and your. But as I mentioned, we are a little bit the word is moving on chain, and I think Dune has been known for one thing, which is community and dashboard. And ironically, we have done tons of things. If I tell you the list of companies and organization and institution that are using Dune, you'll probably oh wow, you are powering truly crypto and non-crypto company today. So I think it's one of the many reasons why we needed, I think, the brand to reflect a little bit the type of people we are engaging with. And we haven't done, to the best of my knowledge, besides we were called Dune Analytics and we changed to Dune, that's it, Dune, in 2021. Outside of that, I don't think there has been, to the best of my knowledge, too much change in the Dune brand. It's been the same logo, the same kind of vibe. It was maybe a little bit too sci-fi, DJ. A lot of people make comment about the movie, which, by the way, has no connection, but it just happened to be. So I think it's one of the many reasons, but obviously more of a business decision. And again, a fantastic exercise to go through that. I don't know, Jana, have you gone through a full, deep, multi-month branding, rebranding exercise?
I did on the agency front, and I can attest, right? Actually, my journey started in branding agency many years ago, and I think to Arno's point, every choice is very deliberate and thought through, right? And it stems from a strategy. And I think, especially in moments where the business landscape is changing and you need to start addressing new audiences and you're expanding your offering and you really are growing as a company, it is a good moment to relook at your brand and really assess, even if as an organization you have such a thorough and intimate understanding of your brand, that you might need to face this new or next stage of growth, because these new, more sophisticated customers that you are facing need to be approached in a different way, right? So it's about leveling up your brand, right? So usually in the early days of your startup, a decent brand is a good brand, right? But as you are maturing and scaling as an organization, there's just like a level of precision and level of craft that goes into this. So I appreciate the level of commitment it takes on the entire organization, because this is not a designer job. It's a highly strategic and undertaking that requires like buy-in from pretty much the entire leadership, right? And then maybe the final effect is a brand guideline, but it actually is just the tip of the iceberg. So congrats on doing it well, Arno. I think it's a really valuable exercise, because with that refined vision around the brand and the better understanding of all its dimensions, you can also rally the troops internally, right? So not necessarily externally only, but also internally, and just creates a lot of clarity in the organization as well. So it's a really powerful tool, and it should be also used sparingly, because it is quite resource intensive.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. So now I will thank you again for all the insights, all the information you gave us. It's amazing. Let's check Dune. Let's check Myosin, and obviously let's check DeFindex. We have some Dune dashboard. You can verify how everything we do is transparent on chain. So let's go there, and yeah, don't question, verify, or I mean, don't trust, verify. Yeah. So if you are a wallet, you are a builder, you need savings account. Yeah, obviously, contact us, follow us, and we will have some more news. Thank you again, and bye.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you,
you all.
Arno.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Thank you, Francisco.
Bye.
Bye.